this reaction. You know, three 9 true horror stories animated. We finna just do this, and yeah, we finna
Your assistance.
react.
I see you're also an adept exorcist.
I've lived a long enough life to have heard and seen a lot of unusual things. Of course, having spent many of my years in it in the state of Florida, I've seen firsthand on several occasions why the infamous Florida Man is always making headlines across the country. Heck, I could have been one of those Florida men back in the day.
He looked tired.
But I can tell you without a doubt that no matter how steeled you think you become against the surprises life throws at you, you're never invincible. Life always holds the power to shock you to your core. I mean, take me for example. I spent my years in the military, and I've spent my years on the streets, drifting between one rock and another hard place. But no matter what messed up stuff I have to see go down or deal with, I always bounce back. Well, almost always. Out of everything I've seen, only one thing made me lose my cool. And I think it was just the sheer unexpectedness of it. Just that I didn't think anything like it could ever happen in broad daylight in the middle of the city. But there's no denying that this happened. Everyone knows about it these days. It was a nice sunny day in Miami. I was making my way across town down the concrete mess of a highway, just to get out of that part of town I'd been in for the last few weeks. I'd never owned a car, so I was taking my bike down the shoulder. Except I wasn't riding it. I hadn't been sleeping well, and the night before I didn't manage to catch any sleep at all. I was honestly too drowsy to pedal in a straight line, so I was literally just walking my bike down the shoulder of the road.
Hey, no. This animation is fire.
There was a sidewalk next to me, but it was on the other side of a concrete barrier, like the ones they use to divide directions of traffic on freeways. I could have hopped it on foot, but not with my bike. I don't know exactly how I'd ended up sandwiched there between the cars and the concrete, but after what happened later, I'd take that way again over the alternative. The sun was getting high and bright. It was starting to hurt my eyes. I squinted ahead and saw that there was a bridge down the way, a nice wide overpass to provide some shade. I started to quicken my pace, which felt pretty silly given that there were countless cars flying past me. But between the deafening whoosh of each vehicle passing, I kept thinking I was hearing something. Something that sounded like the shouts of heated argument between drunk people.
What's wrong with you? It's no one else down.
That might not be something you'd expect to hear in the middle of the day in your town, but in Miami it's more than common. But I couldn't help but think it sounded a little unusual. I figured that sleep deprivation was screwing with me. I pressed on, but as I got closer to the bridge, the shouting grew louder. It sounded more like screaming, but there was some other noise, like a growling rabid dog. Every time I thought I was about to decipher it,
That sound like a zombie.
past me. Then the sound would change. By the time I got to the bridge, my curiosity was piqued. I could definitely tell where the noise was coming from. Straight ahead of me, just a few more yards under the shade. I peeked over the edge of the barrier onto the sidewalk and saw two hairy pairs of men's legs sliding around together on the
What in the
sidewalk.
world is
I
that?
instinctively darted my eyes away, not wanting to see much more above the thigh level. These experimenting people need to get a room. What are they thinking? Doing stuff like that on the side of the road in the beating sun? Well, obviously no one.
Bro. Wait a minute. Ugh. Bro, this dude is. I don't even know what this is.
Two hairy pairs of men's legs sliding around. together on the sidewalk. I instinctively darted my eyes away, not wanting to see much more above the thigh level. It's experimenting people need to get a room. What are they thinking? Doing stuff like that on the side of the road in the beating sun. Well, obviously no one cares because no one's stopping. Just another day in Florida. I did my best to keep my eyes to myself as I passed under the shade. I was thankful for the break from the intense light, but beneath the underside of the road above, some strange sounds began to echo, forcing me in for another look.
Oh, what the freak?
There were two messed up looking dudes lying naked on the concrete, and one of them was crouched over the other, tearing into a man's face with his teeth. There
No.
was blood gushing out.
It's a
spilling
human
onto the
zombie.
asphalt.
He's a
Blood
cannibal.
showing through the bite wounds on the face, and flesh in the attacker's teeth as he looked up to notice me, just to scream like a feral zombie as he looked me dead in the eye.
Oh no.
It was at that exact
Yeah, get the
moment
stepping,
that
bro.
I
Get
jumped
that.
onto my bike and pedaled off at top speed. All prior drowsiness was erased by the shock of adrenaline. I kept looking back to see if I was being ran down by that psycho. But luckily, he'd been content with scaring me off. I rolled down the first ramp that I got to and immediately went looking for a cop. I found one not even a block away, surrounded by several other very concerned-looking citizens. The police officer, however, seemed annoyed, but I was in a panic, and I never panic, so I must have been a sight to see all on my own. I barged through all those people and got right up into the cop's face.
There's a flippin' zombie on the freaking pedestrian path. Up the ramp, just up that way.
Come on, don't get hysterical with me, people. What do you mean by zombie?
There's a dude eating another dude's face off, man.
Finally, it seemed like something clicked in the cop's brain. He didn't say anything to us. He walked straight into his car, speaking something into his radio. Then he drove up the off-ramp going the wrong way, out of sight. Me and those other civilians traded a few strange looks, all in an understandable loss for words. Some of them looked like avid bicyclists. Others just looked like people who'd come out of their cars. I wondered how long that thing had been going on with all those people just driving past like that. Then we heard the gunshots. 5 of them in quick succession. Everybody on the street stopped what they were doing, dumbfounded. In just a few minutes, more and more cops came, followed by an ambulance, and then the army of press. News van after news van drove up to broadcast the scoop, live on the scene, or whatever. I heard some office building capture the whole...
Alright. We back. Hold on.
It was the talk of the town for weeks. I'm sure the name Miami was heard all across the world alongside Zombie Attack, Cannibal Eats Face Off Homeless Man, Florida Man Gets Wasted and Eats Face. I don't care for any of that. People who weren't there seem fascinated by it. But I know more than anything that I never want to see pictures of that horrible tragedy. Just from seeing it one time, I was shaken up for months. I still get hair standing up on the back of my neck whenever I pass under the bridge.
A person who was riding his bike here off the MacArthur Causeway yesterday afternoon says he saw one man eating another man alive.
This is real?
My face is all damaged up. My eyes got plugged out.
And ignored the officer's orders to stop eating the other man's face.
Bruh, no.
Out of every day that I have ever lived through, even with so many of them
Hey,
being
that was
so
long. That was
hard,
8
there
minutes.
is one that stands out as the worst day of my entire life. It was my mother's 63rd birthday. The morning started just like any other. I helped my little girl get dressed and ready for school. It was supposed to be a big day for her. She'd been practicing for her school spelling bee for weeks, and today was the day. The two of us were about to walk out the door when my husband grabbed me on the shoulder and stopped us before the door. You can't let her go to school looking like that. She looks unkempt. What will people think when she's on stage? I was going to just accept that he was right and change our daughter into some different clothes, but my mother, who was living with us at the time, had a bit of a grudge against my husband, and she wouldn't have it. It was her birthday.
Who do you think you're talking to? If you make my granddaughter late for school on the day of her recital, you got another thing coming. Go, baby, get out of here. Don't let that oaf tell you what to do.
My husband looked a little dumbstruck by my mother's resistance to his remark. He was usually the head of the household, and he would always get his way. But ever since my mother retired and started living with us, she had fought him for control over every little thing. I didn't want to be caught in the crossfire between the two of them on that day, so I just left like my mother told me to. I dropped my daughter off at school, then spent several hours running errands. Early in the afternoon, I got a call from my mother. For some reason, she was elated.
Today sure is a good day, dear. How's about you take your old lady out for some coffee and pastries for her birthday?
There wasn't really
Bro, why does she sound like that?
any way that I could say no. I might have married a controlling man, but I was born to an even more demanding and particular mother. So I put a hold on the grocery shopping I was about to do and met her at her favorite cafe in town, which was, of course, ridiculously overpriced and overrated. She ordered the most expensive things on the menu on my tab, then told me to take pictures of her holding them up to commemorate the occasion. When I asked for a bite, she said,
Oh, give it a rest, honey. I've done enough for you today. I deserve this to myself.
I was confused by what she meant, but I didn't bother to ask. I heard my phone go off for my purse, and I welcomed the distraction. I'd gotten a text
Wait.
from...
Is this a girl or a boy? Is this a girl or a boy? I'm gonna go back.
my sister-in-law, asking where my mother was. I replied that she was at the coffee house with me, but I didn't get a reply. Instead, about 15 minutes later, the police pulled up. They marched inside with forlorn faces and told us to follow them to the police station, but they wouldn't tell us why. Now, I understand that they didn't want to make a scene at the place of business. When we got to the station, we were met by a man in a suit who spoke to us softly. Hello, ma'ams. I have some very unfortunate news. If you would, I'd like to talk to one of you at a time in this room here. The other can sit in the waiting room with your family.
Oh, let me go first. It's my birthday.
How did she sound
Sure.
like that?
Come with me, ma'am. And so, my mother disappeared into a windowless room with that man, as I was ushered into a larger waiting room, where I found my entire family of in-laws sitting in quiet, sobbing despair. I asked them,
Do any of you know what's going on?
but none of them answered. They just looked at me with daggers in their tearful eyes. Confused, I found a seat away from them, up against the wall that was shared with the room my mother had just been taken into. I was soon to find out that that room was purposed for interrogations and had an extremely thin wall. Something terrible happened today, ma'am. Your son-in-law has passed away.
Huh? What'd you say?
Your daughter's husband has been killed.
Oh, no! Oh no!
In that moment, my world collapsed. I'd just seen my husband alive a few hours ago, but now he was gone. I couldn't think of a single person who would want to hurt him. But then it hit me. The last person I'd left him alone with was my own mother.
So he's dead?
Yes, he was killed. He was shot 12 times in his own home.
Yay! Happy birthday to me. I did it. I did it.
Everything after that is just a blur. They called my daughter out of school and made us go in the room with my mother. I remember her saying something like,
Aren't you so happy, baby? You're free now. No more of that jerk hanging around.
but there was nothing I could say. I'm still struggling.
Oh, no. What, bro? That's crazy. But she's laughing. Like it's normal.
Going to recover from that day, almost 10 years ago. I just can't believe how deranged she became, that she would do something so despicable and then celebrate it. She even made me take her out to lunch afterwards. I know I didn't marry a perfect man, but she had no right to do what she did. We could work things out, but now, none of that is possible. But over everything else, it's my daughter I pray for her grandmother to take away her father like that, and act like she was doing her a favor. I just don't understand what snapped in that woman's mind.
What did you think of him? And why do you say that?
That's the big thumbs down. You didn't like it.
I want to tell you that just within the last 30 minutes, the judge did rule that there is now enough evidence for Cynthia Sitabaca to stand trial for murder.
Did he do it? You told me he did.
He did.
He did.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh boy, oh boy. Good, 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 good. Oh, thank you, thank you.
Did you check to see if he did it?
I didn't care.
That's really how she sounds. What?
I used to work at a Walmart before I got fired for a headphone related.
Bro, what? People is crazy. Ain't no way, yeah. Dang, bruh. Dang.
Incident. I worked in the clothing department, and since Walmart isn't exactly known for its hot fashion, it was generally pretty slow. Aside from folding and hanging up clothes, there wasn't much else to do. That's why I picked up the habit of hiding my AirPods behind my hair and listening to music to get through the boredom.
Yeah? Thank you.
On my shifts. I was fully aware that this was against company policy, but I didn't really care. I would have quit from the lack of stimulation alone if it weren't for my music. And it wasn't like my supervisor was around much anyway. I don't think they ever would have known if it weren't for the major incident which got me fired. The day started like any other. I finished the task left over from the previous shift and got settled into my usual spot by the fitting rooms, folding the same 10 articles of clothing over and over again, while tucked into a corner in which I'd only be seen by customers who were already in the fitting room aisle. It took almost an hour before I got my first customer. Hello, sir. I'd like to try on these clothes, please. He had about 5 or 6 articles of clothing, so I handed him a tag numbered 6 and pointed him down the aisle as I gave him my usual customer service voice. All the rooms are available. Hang this outside your door to let others know your room is occupied. Well, thank you very much. After waiting a few seconds for a response he didn't get, he gave up and took the first door on the left. Even on slow days, the business came in waves, so it wasn't more than a minute later before the next customer approached me. At a glance, I could tell there was something a little off about the guy.
He looked drunk.
He didn't seem like the type of person that would usually buy clothes, like, at all. But it didn't matter to me. I treat all customers with the same level of hospitality. None. Can I?
Oh no. Your hot breath, bro. I'm out here. Nah. Get up on my story, yeah. Get up on my story. Dip.
In one of those rooms,
bro.
The guy had far more than 10 articles of clothing, which is the limit per customer. But there was no way I was going to argue with him. So I just handed him a tag number 10 and sent him on his way away from me. All the rooms except the first one on the left are available. Hang this outside your door, let others know your room is occupied. He took the tag slowly, like he wasn't sure if it was some kind of trap or not. Then, he went into the second room on the left. I knew that was weird, because most people would put a little more space between themselves and the people changing next to them. The fitting rooms were more like stalls. The walls don't go all the way down to the floor, and they don't reach the ceiling. But there was nothing I was willing to do about it. That alone was not a good enough reason to interrupt somebody while they were changing. So I just went back to folding, waiting for them to come out and give me more clothes to fold. A few minutes in, my favorite song came on shuffle. I discreetly turned the volume up a few notches, just to jam out a little bit for the one song. Then I turned it back down so I could hear new customers approaching. That's when the weird guy came out. I thought it was strange how he came out before the other guy, considering he had so much more clothes. He had all the clothes jumbled up into one tangled mess, which he plopped down on the cart in front of me. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Bro.
He sounded out of breath, like he'd just done a fitting room speed run. He gave me a good look at the bloodshot white of his eyes, then tore his gaze away and walked off in a rush. I shrugged. Oh well, just another day of dealing with Walmart shoppers. But as I was folding up the clothes he'd just dropped off, I noticed something I'd never seen before. Not even at Walmart. There were bloodstains smeared all over the clothes. Little ones at first, just an eye-catching dab or two. Then more and more towards the bottom, until the last shirt was nearly soaked in red. I began to panic, pausing my music to hear my quickened breath. I put aside the clothes and walked down the aisle. The number 6 tag was still hanging on the first door, and beneath it, a thick pool of blood seeping out into the aisle. I pushed open the door, revealing the source. The next man from 4 was stuffed into the corner, torn to shreds, skin hanging off the bone. His half-naked body full of deep holes still spilling out with blood. The blood was everywhere. And on the mirror, a message had been written in it by hand. The writer's fingerprints visible in the coagulation. The parting words of the killer read, "The devil made me do it." Needless to say, I got fired that day. But I don't care. I don't even care if they caught the guy the same day. All I can think about when I remember that day is, how could I let it happen? If I'd just been doing my job, if I'd only been paying just one little bit of attention, I could have heard that man being murdered. Maybe then, I could have done something to stop it. Maybe I could have intervened, or screamed, or something. I could have done anything to save that man's life. But no, I wasn't doing any of those things. I was lost in my own little world within my AirPods. And that man is dead because of me. Worse, he's more than dead. I really shouldn't be talking about this, but I've been keeping the secret from everyone.
Okay, we're gonna watch one more, alright?
And as I've gotten more old and withered over the years, I'm close enough to death that I no longer care if they find me. It was the early 90s, and I just hit flat broke and fell out on the streets. I consider myself a wise and seasoned hobo these days, but back then I was a rather hopeless case. I barely had any experience with living on my own, let alone without a home. Not only that, but the city was a lot smaller all those years ago. so finding money was that much harder. I would spend all my time begging and pleading, and by the end of most days I wouldn't even have enough change to buy a hot dog from the convenience store. I tried everything I could think of. Busy streets, residential streets, kindness, crassness. I just wasn't getting anywhere. By the end of my first couple months, I was starving. My bones were protruding from my skin, and I could barely keep my eyes open from the lack of energy. It just goes to show the way people are, because many of them won't take pity on you, even if you look as bad as I did. I was sitting on the sidewalk, shivering from the first autumn wind and jingling my cup when some jerkwad in a cheap suit slapped it out of my hand, sending all my money flying into the air and tumbling down into the sewer. "Go get a job, you worthless bum." Then he walked off. I struggled to get to my feet and tried to pick up my quarters, but people kept accidentally kicking me, so I gave up on it. I stumbled away from that no-good avenue to a more relaxing street. I already knew this particular street was popular among the homeless, and I will admit, I had the intention of begging them for food or change, but without much expectation of that working. So you can understand my surprise when I saw a homeless couple sprawled out on a park bench all fat and happy, smiling and laughing and chatting. So this guy walks up to me and says, "Hey man, have you seen the newest Demon Slayer episode?" And I said, "I can't watch Demon Slayer, I'm homeless." Laughter was something I hadn't experienced in a very long time, and I certainly hadn't looked that well fed since even before I became homeless. I went right up to them and started to ask, "Excuse me, I don't mean to be a bother, but I'm having a really rough time out here, and I see that you guys are doing well. All I want to ask is, how have you been able to keep your health? Or how do you panhandle? Like, what's your approach?" "Get lost, buddy." "Please, sir, I beg of you. Winter is coming and I haven't eaten in weeks. I won't survive if I don't get something to eat. I don't want anything from you but knowledge." All right, man, keep it down. I'll tell you how we've been getting fed. But you gotta swear to God that you won't tell anyone about this, or I guarantee that starvation will be the least of your worries. You got that? "Oh, I do, I swear, on the Lord in heaven above, may he bless you and your lady, thank you." "Alright man, listen up, because I'm only gonna say this once. Walk 2 blocks west to the edge of the woods. On the far side of the street, there's a loose manhole cover. Enter and follow the sewer until you meet the old head, Maynard. He feeds the homeless. Now, get lost." I heeded him and got out of there. My brain was so fried by starvation that when I found the manhole, I didn't even think about the stench of the sewer once. But I did make myself wait until sundown. It seemed obvious with all the secrecy that man had pressed upon me that you weren't supposed to be seen going in. Getting there in the early twilight, I heaved off the manhole cover with what felt like the last of my strength, then stepped down onto the ladder and dragged the cover back, sealing myself in the musky darkness. I carefully made my way down the ladder until my feet plunged into raw sewage. I didn't even flinch, let alone recoil. Or I might have noticed what was off about the sewer water. Instead, I reached into my pocket and found a lighter, flicking it on to provide myself some meager guidance in the oppressive stench. There were only 2 ways to go, forward and backward, but on the wall of the tunnel was some writing, cruelly smeared on in some kind of dripping red ink, or maybe it was blood. It read, "Maynard's Buffet," with an arrow pointing down the tunnel. Seemed like I'm in the right place. As I thought aloud, I heard my voice echo many miles through the corridors, stirring a number of creatures that were living within them. All of a sudden, I could hear the scurrying and chirping of rats that I hoped were running away from the sound of my voice and not toward it. But I didn't have the mental fortitude to linger on the grimness of my situation, not with all the ravenous hunger racking my brain. I pressed on, seeing not just more finger-painted signs directing me to the buffet, but also the size of the rats I heard. Monstrous things. But that's beside the point. I must have trudged about half a mile through the muck of the sewer when I knew I had to be getting close, because I could hear the people eating. They sounded like animals, growling, lip-smacking, hoots out of sheer celebration. I never heard such loud chewing, but even in the sewer, the sound of it made my stomach growl. I picked up my pace and tried to get there quicker, but pretty soon I found myself exhausted, forced to go on at a slow, steady pace. Eventually, I saw an intersection in the tunnel, and that's right about when my lighter ran out of juice. I pressed on, the sound of the feet growing louder and louder. But right as I was about to round the corner, I heard a snap, like a bone being broken in half. I stopped. A chill ran down my spine, trying my hardest not to stir the sewer water that I could now clearly see was a dark turbid red and a light from around the corner. I crept up to the intersection.
Oh no, we gotta go.
Squatting in the stagnant drainage of a clogged culvert were 6 or 7 shirtless homeless men. All sat around a floating corpse of a man which they were devouring, ripping the skin from flesh, the flesh from bone, breaking the bones and sucking out the marrow, cracking the skull and scooping out the brains, chewing that bright crimson with tendon and sinew stuck between their teeth. And I would have recognized that cheap suit anywhere. I'd seen that jerk just a few hours ago, right before these crazy cavemen killed him and dragged him down here. I turned and ran. I may have been on the verge of starvation.
Can I get age restricted over this? Cause like this is too much dead
30
body.
years later, and I've long since found out how to make a living on the streets, but I'm still traumatized by what I saw. It's my nightmare in every fitful sleep I managed to catch. But I think I've outlived all the faces I remember from around that time, so I can finally get it off my chest without worrying of becoming a buffet myself.
What the hell, man? What do you want? What do you want me for? I'm just a bum.
I'm a professional photographer by...
Alright. That's it, y'all. Yo, that was crazy. Yeah, that was crazy, but... Listen, y'all, if y'all want some more of these reactions and all that, if y'all want some more, you know, hit that like button, comment if you want some more, right? And subscribe if you're new. You know what I mean? I gotta go, you know, I could be watching all of this. This is an hour, and I want, you know, nah. But yeah, see ya. No, yeah, see ya. You know, subscribe, please. And like. And share this to everybody, bro. See ya. Peace.